Stand up and deliver. Now is your turn. This is day 3 inside the NGC Boca Slit Fest. My name is Rokas, and I'm so grateful to have you guys here for a third day. Oh my goodness, this is mind-blowing. All right, guys, let's not waste any time. This is 2021. We're getting things rolling with some fiction all the way from Canada. Please, behind your screens, put your hands together, snap your fingers, and welcome H. Nigel Thomas.
He has been pacing the corridor backward and forward, from the main door, through the living room to the dining area, his skin tingling. It began as soon as he got into the elevator on the ground floor. Now sweat's coursing down his sides from his armpits. An hour and a half ago, he received his permanent resident visa, starting over at 36. Tough. He takes off the navy blue blazer he wore to the Citizenship and Immigration Office earlier and hangs it in the coat closet. He should change his damn shirt too. It reeks of the Paco Rabanne he sprayed himself with. He moves to the couch, begins to sit, but hears the crows clamoring outside. They come around 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, garbage collection day. He walks to the dining area, unlocks the patio door, goes onto the balcony and watches them. 21 are feeding rowdily from atop the 3 overflowing dumpsters. On the ground below, 5 gulls, their white plumage contrasting with the crow's black, move around and eye the crows nervously. The simple, instinctual life, he sighs. Do crows worry? If they're as intelligent as the biologists say, they probably do. He hums. All things which live below the sky or move within the sea are creatures of the Lord Most High and brothers unto me. One of the few hymns from his Methodist past that he's still comfortable singing, minus the 3rd line. On the metro on his way home from the immigration office, he vowed to start focusing on what's beautiful in his life. Took over 3 years, 2012 to 2015, to process his immigration application. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. Today, he has something to be thankful for and one less thing to worry about. He returns inside, walks back to the living room and sits on the couch. His mind turns to Gladys, a parishioner back in Barbados, now studying at McGill. This afternoon, he's meeting her for the 4th time since she arrived in Montreal at the end of August. She insisted that she must see him urgently, but wouldn't say why. He thinks she has found out something. Is she about to confront him? No surprises, please, not today. He wonders, will his nightmares end now? Will he stop dreaming that he's back in St. Vincent looking for a job and a purpose for his life? The feeling that his marriage to Jay is a mistake, will that end too? Suppose just Jay says to him when he returns from Atlanta today, Millington, you're a permanent resident now, so let's annul this marriage. That Friday evening, February 17th, 2012, what came over him? Why did he uncork so easily? Why did he spill like that? He'd sealed it for a long time, longer, and he might have exploded, gone insane for real. If Jay's brother Paul hadn't stayed behind in the hotel lobby, he would have been more measured. But the stopper blew, and he gushed like a geezer. The bar was deserted, just a man and a woman at a corner table at the far end from them, and the bartender behind the counter. He told Jay that he's resigned from the Methodist ministry. Jay complimented him for doing so. If that's what you wanted. And now I'm destitute, he resisted saying. He asked Jay about the possibility of immigrating to Canada, Jay said he'd heard that the easiest way was to marry Canadian citizens, that the government had launched a campaign to discourage Canadians from marrying people they meet while holidaying abroad. A long pause. I'll check out the citizenship and immigration website and let you know, Jay said, his head turned away. Billington took a deep breath, held on fiercely onto the sides of the table, his hands slippery with sweat, closed his eyes and said, "Did you ever suspect that I'm gay?"
It was a real callaloo of folks out there in La Fontaine, the clerk thought to herself, smiling. And by, it looked like every one of them wanted to see what it was about banking with the atrium that made them so special. You'd have young ladies, old ladies, big hardback men and all. Each of them... The clerk stopped herself mid-thought. She peered through the glass door at the slim, gawky figure making its way up the office steps. As soon as she made out the silhouette, she sighed and slumped into her chair. Yes, you really did get them all, and some days you would even get Minnie. Minnie was a local woman approaching her 30s, like almost all the clerks in the office. But the difference with her was that she had never had to lift a finger in her life, because her mom had fixed her up good with plenty of atrium money. Still, for all the work she shirked, she was remarkably thin and made some even more remarkably fat babies. She slung the youngest from her hip to her lap as she took her seat in front of the clerk. "There's only 2 minutes to take in here, don't worry." "A very good morning to you too," replied the clerk. "Yes, good morning, but let me do this quick. You see, it have a part of the statement here that confusing me." She pointed one long acrylic to the first line of the statement in hand. She looked up. The clerk stared back at her expressionlessly. She tapped on the microphone. "Miss Madam, watch is here that I want you to look at," she said, pointing at the statement again. "Minnie, you know by now they have a number system. It's not no roll-up and hop-in kind of thing, you know. This is not Citygate. Here's not a Maxi." "Where had I be you in here today, boy? Where Yvonne? I could handle she. Play fresh with me now. I have a case right here that can embarrass you and this whole office bad. Read that last line for me, please." The clerk looked at the statement. On it were all of Minnie's transactions, the atrial in pink at the top and the ventricular in teal below. The statement was divided into 4, with the bottom right quadrant showing outgoings, and it was this section that had left Minnie in a fit. "So there was a girl up at dawn on a Saturday." She paused gloweringly for the clerk to appreciate the full gravity of the fact. "I there, set and ready to buy my VVIP tickets. Tell me why when I go to place the order now, they're telling me my card declined? What is that?" Skimming dismissively over most of the page, the clerk glanced at the recent deposits on the right. "It's very simple," she said, looking at the far from simple diagram with mock pity. "Here," she said, pointing to the bottom left corner, "you don't have any money. So if you don't have any ventricular funds ready in your outgoings, you can't make a ventricular purchase." "Right, but what happened in here?" said Minnie, pointing now to the pink section at the top of the statement. "And if it have money here, it should flow down to here?" "You know it's not just so it does work, Miss Lady. Once you open up an atrial account, you have to wait the standard processing time before it is released from your atria. Everything passing through the corona system have to get the approval of the atrium." "God, boy, other people just like to drag things out for spite." "Minnie," said the clerk again, "you'd have people waiting here long from before you could even wipe out the yampy from your eye this morning. We'd really have here so that you could know." Before she had finished her sentence, the clerk felt her blood run cold, as for the first time in the conversation, she had actually read all the figures on the right half of the statement. "Minnie, that figure there, is that what you're getting for this month?" "Well, I find you a little fast, but yes, it's so I does move my dairy." It was a pending deposit, but something about it did not look right. This one was larger than any she had seen approved by the atrium in one transaction. The clerk looked again at the statement, and then up at Minnie. She looked down at the statement again, then at the baby, who stared back as blankly as its mother. It grimaced as if to relieve itself, and then quickly repositioned it again. "Well, sugars in truth," said Trish, leaning back in her chair. If these numbers were indeed correct, and they had no reason not to be, they were indeed in a serious mess.
What a moral dilemma indeed. Ah boy, as we did say in Trinidad and Tobago, pressure? Alright, speaking of Trinidad and Tobago, the next writer I'm going to present to you guys inside Stand and Deliver is hailing from right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Check this out.
Albert, get up, it's raining and the roof is leaking again. Maisie sat up in bed. She poked her husband's shoulder. The steady drip of water coming through the galvanised roof of their little wooden house had woken her. "If it's raining, there's not much I can do now," grumbled Albert. "Put a bucket to catch it. I'll fix it tomorrow." He turned over and went back to sleep. Next morning the sun was shining. Albert sat in his rickety rocking chair on the porch, smoking his pipe. He watched the clouds drifting like puffs of white smoke across the blue sky. "Albert, oh Albert," wailed Maisie. "The cow's gone from the field. How many times I ask you to mend the fence, and you keep saying tomorrow. "It's too hot now," responded Albert, "but I'll do it first thing tomorrow." Later that day, after she had caught the cow and tethered her to a post, Maisie came out onto the porch waving a bundle of letters at her husband. "Albert," she cried in despair, "the water, electricity and telephone bills are all overdue. When are you going to town to pay them?" "Tomorrow. I'll go tomorrow," he replied. "I have to fix the car and put air in the tyres first." "And while you are there, you can get some cooking gas and check the lotto numbers. We might have won enough money to buy a new roof," Maisie told him. Next day it was raining again. Maisie grumbled as she placed buckets and pots to catch the drips from the ceiling. "You say you can't fix it when it's raining, and when the sun is shining you say there's no need because water not coming in." Meanwhile the cow broke free from the rope. She ran through the broken fence and galloped off down the road. That evening Albert was watching football on the television when at the precise moment his hero was about to score a goal, the screen went blank and the lights went off. He gave out a great roar. Maisie, who was cooking in the kitchen, let out a scream. Tomorrow. I'm sick of hearing tomorrow," she bawled. "Current gone, no light, no water. Wassa done disconnected it, and now the gas has gone. How am I going to cook the supper?" "Well, it's too late now," sighed Albert. "I'll get up early tomorrow and go to pay the bills." Maisie made bread and cheese sandwiches. They used rainwater from a barrel to wash the wares and sponge themselves down before going to bed. Early next morning, before the sun came up, there was a bang, bang, bang on the door. Police! Get up, Albert Brown. You are under arrest for non-payment of fines for traffic violations." But, Albert protested, pulling on his pants. "I was going into town tomorrow to see after everything." "That's what they all say," growled the police officer, snapping on the handcuffs. "Don't you know tomorrow never comes? You should never put off until tomorrow what you can do today." Later, Maisie caught a taxi into town. She paid the bills and took her lotto tickets to check the numbers. Imagine her delight on discovering she had won $5,000, enough to buy some sheets of galvanised for the roof and purchase an extra cylinder of gas. "Come after lunch," she told the roofer. "I'm not waiting for tomorrow, it might be raining. And maybe tomorrow, if it isn't raining, I'll go and bail Albert out of jail." Crick crack, monkey broke his back, all for a piece of rotten pomerac.
Neighborhood Posse, written by Robin Kirkley and read by Robin Kirkley. Glancing out my window whilst passing casually, I see somebody bending over by my neighbour mango tree. I step out on my gallery to take a closer look, freeze right in a footstep when I see it was a crook. I slide like boa constrictor down the wall and to the floor, do a Rambo through the living room and in the kitchen door. My blood was boiling over as I dialed the telephone. When I break the news to neighbour, my neighbour only groan. I say, neighbour, neighbour, a man in your yard is a damn old thief, man, he making life hard. Call the posse, neighbour, we taking a stand. It's time to fight back, but remember the plan. Neighbour get excited like he want to break away when he hear the call to action for the neighborhood posse. I tell him, pay attention, call Mr. Jones and Jack, or you set the ambush by the big drain in the back. Georgie on the other side must stand up by the wall, and everybody listen for when you hear me bawl. Then Karate Kid across the road will rush in from the gate. But neighbor, let us hurry, otherwise we'll be too late. So neighbor, neighbor, the call went round. We circled the yard, not making a sound. Action stations, let the posse rule. Show this damn old thief who is the fool. With each man in position, I was just about to bawl when something startled old thief like a Julie mango fall. 'Cause suddenly he jump up and he bawl out, aye, aye, aye. It's then I hear Karate Kid jump the gate like he could fly. As he hit the ground, the neighbor dog did rush him with a roar, and he end up like a ninja on top my neighbor car. Well, old thief pull out iron and he run down in the back, so I shout me out to neighbor and Mr. Jones and Jack. I say, neighbor, neighbor, the man have a gun. He coming your way. Run, neighbor, run. Tell the posse, neighbor, the man packing lead. So scat like a cat if you don't want to dead. I did not quite believe my eyes as neighbor jump out from the drain. But if you see me partner strike a pose like old John Wayne. He right hand stretch out way in front. He left hip pointing down. The top lip bent round the side. Man, the sheriff was in tongue. Stop right there, you criminal, I hear me neighbor shout. Or else you're losing every tooth inside your nasty mouth. I waiting now to hear the bang if old thief start to blast. Instead I had to drop my jaw as he sprawl out on the grass. I say, neighbor, neighbor, what happened there? Like thief shoot himself as he getting away? As I watching closest then I see is laugh the man laughing hysterically. Me, myself and neighbor, and by this time Jones and Jack, we stand up watching old thief as he rocking on the back. If you see the great big shotgun, man, it's swinging in his hand. I want to know what happened. Neighbor, what you do this, man? Well, Jonesy couldn't take it. He bust up laughing too. When he watched me crazy neighbor how he stand up in his shoe. Like madness take him over. Something bite him in his brain. I see my neighbor stand up more John Wayne than old John Wayne. I say, neighbor, neighbor, quick turn your back. Now it's Jack like he having a heart attack. Well, as Georgie reach and he take one look, he dropped down next to the howling crook. It's then I hear the police stand up shouting by the gate. But my leg was crossed so tight, I could only tell him wait. Eventually, with caution, I start to make my way, but nothing could prepare me for what I see in there. It's 2 vanload of police and soldier toting gun, and not a man would pass the barking dog. Instead, he want to run. Karate Kid on top the car, he begging for some help. So I raise my hand and neighbor dog did scatter with a yelp. I shout, neighbor, neighbor, police arrive. Jump on the thief, we go take him alive. But as they reach in the back and they see Sheriff Wayne, not one of the constable's composure remain. Well, they had to carry old thief because he couldn't even walk. Just as well they know his name because he couldn't even talk. Apparently the police had been hunting for this man. And now it's thanks to neighbor that he locked up in the van. Like a hero, single-handedly, my neighbor stopped the thief, who every time he watch him laugh so hard he get in grief. He begged the police take him quick before he dropped down dead. Well, neighbor didn't like that. He want a bossy head. I say, neighbor, neighbor, don't be a fool. You catch the thief, man, the posse rule. Now George and Karate, Jones and Jack, they all giving neighbor a slap on the back. I say, neighbor, man, it's a night to be proud. But he vexed with the thief who's still laughing loud. 'Cause the police gone now, it must be a mile. You could still hear the man. I had to hide and smile.
Thank you so much, Robin, and the whole neighborhood posse. Let's keep things moving now. I want to welcome to stand and deliver Ivy. Ivy, gonna talk about the market. Well, they just let me check it out. Ivy, take it away.
The only one of the trio left on the farm, Calvin Joe felt alone. He spent most of his evenings with Anna, but his new boss continued to make his life miserable. Calvin Joe had to wake extra early, although his pay remained the same, because his boss wanted to increase production in every area to show he was better than his predecessors. Take it or leave it, he told them repeatedly. There are many others dying to get the job, many more lining up to come, killing themselves to come, dying for what you got. A part of his peeve with Calvin Joe, too, was that the boy never stopped talking about the former boss or comparing them even to newcomers, so he was told. Calvin Joe bought more lotto tickets and more rum, though he was trying hard to save. He tried to be good and keep his mouth shut too. Most of all, the boss man must not know about his marriage. But his boss man never let him go undisturbed. They were in the slaughterhouse that Saturday morning. Calvin Joe had gotten there at 6 o'clock instead of 5. He had drunk copiously the night before, gotten home late, and overslept. His boss descended on him with an onslaught of uglies. Calvin Joe did not respond. His teeth were gritted and his jaws were hard. His nostrils opened wide as if he were about to bray, but he kept on working. The boss walked up to the huge bulk and sneered. "I will ship you back to where you come from." Calvin Joe began to think of the trip he wanted to make home to Jamaica and remained silent. His friend Buddy had warned him to stay out of trouble. The other workers, they held their heads firmly and looked out of the sides of their eyes. George sliced off the heads of 3 chickens in the seconds of sharp silence that prevailed. The boss man ranted, fueled by the fierce silence and the thick fear in the room. Resentment, which had been corroding his insides for weeks, spilled over into his glassy gray eyes, which shone with a kind of madness, like a rabid dog. Common sense gave way to anger, reason gave way to resentment, and self-preservation gave way to power. Red in the face, the boss man strutted up behind the boy. "I gon' get your tail fired, you hear me? Fired. I go and put you back on that plane," he squawked, and he poked his right index finger in the back of the boy's huge head. Energized by anger, Calvin Joe spun around with the neck cutter raised high and angling down towards the man's throat. The Guatemalan beside him and 3 others grabbed his hand before the cutter hit the throat. George stood with his mouth wide open, his neck cutter held high and glistening above his head. In a rage and anguish, Calvin Joe wielded the dead bird with its freshly cut neck and whapped the man square in the face. He grabbed another, a live bird, and swung it and clawed the man in his face. Everything happened so quickly that neither the boss man nor anyone else was certain where the blood originated, blood that was draining from the boss man's throat and face. He stood there gawking, scratches on his face, his gray eyes bulging, chicken feathers gripped in his yellow teeth, knowing he was dead. He looked at Calvin Joe with weakly reproving eyes and slumped. After the others realized Calvin Joe had not killed him, they silently cheered their champion for whopping Beelzebub. Slowly, Calvin Joe doffed his bloody white coat and cap, headed down the green path out of Mitch Farm onto the unpaved road. Like a long, verbless sentence, he dangled along, dangled along. Thank you.
Juve. Horace loved carnival. He lived in Pleasantville, and although he visited Port of Spain for some carnival events, his heart was in San Fernando for Mass. Every year, he would take his vacation around carnival time so he could go to the Calypso tents, attend the various steel band competitions, visit Mass camps, and most of all, jump up in San Fernando for Juve and Last Lap. He worked at the Texaco refinery at Pointe-a-Pitre as a refinery operator, and although he applied as early as November for vacation, his application was refused that year as his boss indicated other workers had applied before him, and besides, he had been given vacation for the carnival season for the last 3 years. Horace was very disappointed. Still, he consoled himself that since he worked shift, he could do his visits to the panyards and some Calypso tents when he was off or when he was scheduled to work nights. Many a night he would relieve me late, coming straight from a Calypso tent or a carnival fete, often tired and regularly stale-boozed. He had studied his work roster and made out a list of the events he could attend without being absent from work, for he knew that the bosses were paying attention to his attendance. He had already received a warning letter for being absent without cause and would have to be very careful. He looked at his list and was quite pleased. He could make most of the key events, but he was scheduled to work 7 to 3 on Carnival Monday and 3 to 11 on Tuesday, and would miss Juve as well as Last Lap in San Fernando, his most favorite carnival activities. He kept trying to devise a plan to get off from work on these days. He tried changing shift with me and the other operators, but was unsuccessful, as we all loved our carnival and Sando Mass. Carnival Monday, a little hungover after fetting at Naparima Bowl, and with just 2 hours sleep and a heavy heart, he woke at 5:30 a.m. Horace took a taxi from his home in Pleasantville to San Fernando. He reasoned that he could have a little jump up before going to work. He was on Coffee Street next to Royal Castle, chipping to Guinness Cavaliers playing Sparrows Drunk and Disorderly, and checking his watch regularly to decide when was the latest time he could jump in a taxi to reach Pointe-a-Pitre for his shift, which started at 7 a.m. Drunk and disorderly, always in custody. My friends and my family, all man fed up on me cause I'm drunk and disorderly. Every weekend I in the jail, drunk and disorderly, nobody to take my bail. Horace sang happily as he followed Guinness Cavaliers towards the Carnegie Library. Suddenly, a beer bottle crashed on the ground right next to Horace. Screams and confusion as people pushed and ran aimlessly. Men and women fell down as a big fight broke out. Sirens and police. Horace felt handcuffs on his wrists as he was thrown in the police van. He spent the next 2 days in a cell at the police station. Getting locked up on a Friday in Trinidad means that you are inside for the weekend and would not get bail until Monday when the courts reopened. Getting locked up on Carnival means you remain in custody until Ash Wednesday. He was released on Ash Wednesday with the other people without being charged, so there was no proof that Horace was arrested. Anyway, that was the story Horace told me as he apologized for not relieving me that Carnival Monday morning, causing me to work a double shift. He told the same story to the bosses as his excuse for not coming to work. They could not prove otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Motilal Boodoosingh, for wrapping things up for us inside Stand and Deliver 2021. What a fitting way to end it with Horace's Carnival. Ah, boy, it's been a fantastic year for us inside the NGC Boca Fit Fest. I know it's still a little bit different to do it virtually, but I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you're able to experience so much more than you would have been able to if you couldn't make it here to Trinidad and Tobago, or if you just couldn't be a part of the festival before. Thank you guys for coming on board with Stand and Deliver. Until next time, my name is Rokas. Do enjoy the rest of the festival.